So today we're going to start looking at building larger applications using the programming language PHP and the database as the back end, which obviously for us is going to be MySQL. Now often they talk about this notion of CRUD, and CRUD is an acronym that stands for the kind of standard operations that you use with any application. It stands for this: create, retrieve, update and delete. And you think about the kind of things that you'll be wanting to do with the data set, that obviously translates into, more often than not, these four actions. You're going to want to create a new record, insert a new piece of data, and that could be a record or a row into one of the tables. You'll want to pull information out from the table, so you'll want to retrieve information. You'll want to update. So imagine it was an employee table. You'd want to change someone's salary or change someone's information because they've been promoted. And then the final one here is delete a row from the table. So in other words, for example, an employee leaves, something like that. And we've seen that in fact these are the basic bits of SQL syntax that you use all the time. To actually create someone, to actually insert a new row into a table, we use the insert into table SQL syntax that looks a bit like that. To actually pull information out of the table, we use a select statement, so select star from table. If we want to update, well, it is the reserved word update in SQL. And if we want to delete a particular row or rows, we use delete from, and then whatever the name of the table is there, and then we'll have a sort of condition stuck on the end, a where condition. So what we're going to focus on here is we're going to build an application that implements create, retrieve, update and delete for the emp table. We used the emp table previously. So the emp table in the original database, it's got three tables: department, emp and grade. Here's the emp table, and it's the one that we're familiar with. It's people who work in a particular company. We've got a whole bunch of different columns here which describe their employee number, their name, what job they have, who their manager is, their hire date and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to assume that you've already created these three tables into a database, and either you're going to be using the Kingston University MySQL system, which is available through the web server, or you're going to be using MySQL. And the SQL to actually create these three tables is all available. So you grab that SQL, you copy the text, it's just a text file, you paste it into PHP MyAdmin, and that creates those three tables. And specifically, we're going to focus on the emp table. Now, the acronym is create, retrieve, update and delete, CRUD. But in fact, some of these are sort of easier to create and some of them are harder to create. So we're going to change the order slightly. So we're going to work from sort of the easier ones to the harder ones. So we're actually going to do them in this sequence. We'll start with retrieve. Now, if you're thinking ahead, you might already be realizing actually that's a select statement. Delete an employee, well, that's going to be using a delete SQL statement. Create's going to be using that insert statement, and then update's going to be using that update SQL. Now we have, this is a proper application we're going to be building here with lots of features. So here's a sitemap that describes all the different pages that we'll be creating. We'll have a main page called emp.main.php. There's not going to be too much on that. It's basically just going to be links that take you to the retrieve, the delete, the create and the update pages. Now you can see as you progress down the slide, they become progressively harder. There are more pages required to actually sort of do this work. So with the retrieve, all we're really doing is we're using a select statement. When we're doing a delete, we'll have to find the name of the person that we want to delete. In other words, well, we'll be using emp number to actually work out which we want to delete. So we'll have a form, and then we'll have a response page, emp delete response.php. That's the thing that will do all the hard work, that will actually delete that record. Create, well, we'll have a form like emp insert.php, and we'll get the user to type in all the details for that user, and then we'll have a response page that actually inserts that person into the database table. Update is probably the most complicated one here, because if we want to update an employee, there's a kind of three-part process to that. The first thing we have to do is work out which particular person we want to update the details for. Then we have to sort of retrieve that person's details. And once we've retrieved that person's details, we can then update that information into the database table. So we're going to do them in that order.